Hey, what's up, guys? It is OGC, Original Gaming Culture here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to start off this video by saying thank you. Just over a month ago, we started the channel. My personal goal was to hit 1,000 subscribers as fast as possible. With everyone's help, we're almost there. We're making it to the final push, which will be awesome because then we can monetize the channel. Then every time you click on it, you'll get to skip an advertisement. Ooh, my hair's a little off. You'll be able to skip an advertisement. It will create revenue. And with that revenue, 100% of it is going back to OGC. The money will be brought back into the community. It's going to go all around. And it will be cool because we'll be able to do more giveaways as the channel grows. That won't come directly out of somebody's pocket that's part of OGC, and it will come from everything with YouTube. But I just want to say that I am extremely grateful to have you guys as a community. We even have a community chat in-game. We haven't had any issues. It's been really nice. It's been motivating. So without further ado, let's jump in. Today, we're going to talk about how the math for stacking, building speed, research speed helps. So what I mean by that is, if I go into a temple, do I have a random one? I think it's this one. Nope, it is not that one. Is it this one? Did I pass it? Aha, here we go. So increase research speed by 30%. And then I have another one that says increase research speed by 20%. Does that mean that we get 50% off of our research speed? No, it does not. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do out the math. But for a very literal example, I'll show you with the buildings. So let's become castle level 41, because why not? All right, so we are now castle level 41. What I really want to see is what buildings we can make now. So we have the hunting hall, which is, okay, so you can upgrade huntresses. Grotto would be for the trees. Fungal fort. These names. So it looks like you can upgrade the fungus, trees, and huntresses. So in human terms, that would be swordsman, spearsman, cavalry. In dwarf terms, that's actually mechs, blasters, and miners. So this is pretty huge overall. So I'm going to move into a building spot, because why not? And let's queue some up. So we saw the timers from before. Wow, that's only 1 day and 5 hours. How long is that one? 1 day and 7 hours. Why is that one 3 days? That seems like a... We're going to skip that one. Let's, do I have Clash? I believe I do have Clash. So we'll do that one first, followed by this one, followed by that one. If we have time, I'd rather do the gate. And we're definitely not going to have time, but you know what? I'll queue these up just in case. So we cannot get the next level 4 research yet when you turn level 41. So that's cool. So now we'll be able to get level 14 huntresses, trees, and also shroom lords. For Rockin', this is huge as well, because I believe that's ninjas, swords, and monks. So for a lot of races, it's the melees. It sucks for Lich because you can't get the spiders yet, or the warlocks, but you can get everything else. So Lich will be a little bit behind, but I want to show you guys what a level 41 castle looks like. So without further ado, let's turn into Professor OGC and go over some math. Whoa! What's up, guys? Sorry about that. That editing was epic. So I made a super easy example for us. Easy in the sense that the numbers are very easy to work with. to show how adding additional reductions to either research, damage mitigation, building queue, like how it works in the game. So we're running with the idea that we have 100 units of time, or just 100 units. If we're talking about damage mitigation for heroes or troops, it could be 100 health, doesn't matter. All of this follows the same principle. I have two different examples here. I got example number 1 and example number 2. I write like a doctor. Sooner or later, when I finish up with school, I'll have a PhD, and then you can call me doctor. Until then, I haven't earned the title. The doctor reference is to my handwriting and how amazing it is. So, in this first example, we have 10%, 10%, and 10%, all for reductions. Let's go with building. Let's say that I am a chancellor. I move on to a building tile, and my dragon reduces building speed by 10%. There's more that you should use than just that, but let's roll with that. We have these three 10% things. According to this first example, we're going to add all three of these together to get a total of a 30% reduction. A 30% reduction. That means that this 100 units of time, say this is 100 hours. Now all of a sudden that 100 hours is going to become 70 hours. That is awesome. However, that's not how this works. This is not how it works. You do not add percentages on top of one another. That is not how this works at all. The way that you deal with percentages is you multiply the percentages into each other. So that's like this bottom example. So it's the same thing. We have 10% from Chancellor, 10% from Building Tile, 10% from Dragon. For the sake of the example, it's not an accurate one. This is concepts. What happens is if you want to find out, if you want to reduce a certain percent off of a number, you multiply the remainder of it into it. So if I'm taking out 10% off, the number 1 would be 100%. So 0.9 represents 90%. If I'm taking 10% off, then I multiply it by 0.9, meaning I want to know what the other 90% of that number is. So if we start off with 100, we take 100, we insert it down here. We take 100, we multiply it by 0.9, which is taking 10% off, and all of a sudden we're at 90 seconds. That's off of this first column. So right from the get-go, it looks identical, because if we just take 10% off of 100, we're at 90. Makes sense for here. Now, what we have to do is we take that 90 and we multiply it versus this 10% as well, because since we're going to take another 10% off, we multiply it by 0.9. So now all of a sudden it comes out to be 81 as our total. If we compare it to the version above, if these added, that would be 20% off. 20% from 100 is 80. So as we can tell, this number is slightly higher. This is 81. Up here, it would be 80. Now we do the same thing. We take that 81, we multiply it by the 0.9 again, because we're taking another 10% off, and it comes out to be 72.9. So if we come over here and we compare these, right? If we compare adding them all together versus multiplying them all, or reducing it and then reducing it, then reducing it. The difference is if we add them all, it comes out to be 30% reduction total. If we multiply them, it comes out to be 27.1% total. And the build time would go from 70 to 72. So it's important to note this whole top section is irrelevant because it does not exist. When it comes to percent reductions in Art of Conquest and multiple of them, remember multiple multiplication. An easy way to remember this concept for Art of Conquest specifically, building timers, damage mitigation, etc. When you have multiple percentages, use multiplication to figure out how much it actually reduces. So I'm going to erase this mess. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by using a real example with my research. Let's do that now. Hey guys, I'm going to show you how I calculate research. This would be everything for me. I'm probably missing something, but I think I have mostly everything. So the D's, so the percentages are what percent reduction I have for the research. They all add up. The D's represent things that I gain from my dragon. So I have an alt dragon. I highly recommend everybody has an alt dragon that has the two yellows for super cheap. You can get a 10% reduction and then a separate 5% reduction from your dragon. You cannot add these together since they're from two different things. They must be separated. As we just saw from that general concept, 15% is different than 10% and 5%. They are not, you don't add them on. They don't accumulate like that. You have to multiply them. The T's represent temple, so I get a 20% from temple, 20% from temple, 30% from temple, another 30% from temple. That's a lot. Actually, just from the temple, that would be, if you added these together, that would be 100% reduction just from the temple. If it worked like our previous example where you add it up and that's how much it reduces by, then all my research would not cost any time at all. It would all be instant because it's 100% reducted, 100% reducted. That's not how this works. This is multiplied and there's depreciating value. So with that being said, we got the 20%, 20%, 30%, 30%. Then we have C from the city tile. You always want to be on a research spot when queuing up research, or you always want to be on a building spot when queuing up the building. That gives you actually 10%. This 10%, I put the O for Oracle. It's an Emperor buff. It adds to research. And then I have 10% with an M. That's for the Magister. So one of the positions, also King, does 10% reduction as well. In the red next to all of these numbers is what we multiplied to find out the next step. Now, I do need to point out one last thing before we start doing numbers, and I do have my calculator. My calculator, because I'm pretty good at doing all this in my head, but for the sake of time and your sanity, I'm going to do it by a calculator. So since this is multiplication and only multiplication and nothing but multiplication, the order of this does not matter. You can switch these numbers back and forth to change the order in which we do this. Because this is math and this is multiplication, it does not matter the order. You can do all the 30% first, then all the 20%. The number at the end of the day is going to come out identical to if you started with the 5% and then went in the opposite order. So multiplication and nothing but multiplication, it does not matter the order that you plug in the numbers. So we're going to do this saying that I'm queuing up for one single research that lasts for 7 days. 7 days happens to be 168 hours. So we're starting off with 168. And then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by 0.9. Just like that. This is for our first one. We hit enter and we get 151.2. So I'm going to write down the new time in hours next to all of it in black. So that's going to be 151.2. Geez, I'm horrible at this. Next one, we're going to, since it's 5%, we're going to multiply by 0.95 times 0.95. So now we're down to 143.64. Now we're going to take that and multiply that by 0.8. Now we're at 114.912. We're going to take that number, multiply it by 0.8. Now we're at 91.92. We'll run it to 9.3 because there's a bunch of numbers afterwards. We're going to take that number and multiply that by 0.7. Now we're at 64.3 3, 5, with a bunch of numbers afterwards. And take that and multiply that by 0.7 again. We're going to be at 4, 5.04. Now we're going to take that and multiply that by 0.9. That brings us to 0.54. We're going to take that and multiply that by 0.9. And that equals 6.48. And once more, we're going to multiply that by 0.9. That brings us to 32.8. Let's just round that up. Call that 33. So we're at 33 hours, which is really 1 day. You always gotta get the D right. So one day in 9 hours. So we went from 7 days down to 1 day in 9 hours off of the 7-day research by getting all of these bonuses. So how important is each bonus? Well, you can figure that out for yourself. For example, if we get rid of the city tile, if we get rid of the oracle, if we get rid of the magisters, then all of a sudden it's 45 hours compared to 32.8. So that just having those 3 spots makes a difference of 12, 13 hours. 12, 13 hours might not seem like a long time, but there's people that play this year for a year plus. And if we're doing this in a day or two, that means every single couple days they get ahead by 12 hours. You get 1 year into it, all of a sudden that person is months ahead of somebody else. This game's all about setting yourself up for the long term. One of these temple buffs, let's call it this one, comes from a +5 temple. 30% is huge. 30% is huge. The difference between a 5% and a 30%, we're multiplying by 0.95 versus 0.7. That's massive. That's just about as massive as my arms. Like, geez. So it's important to get as many of these as possible because every little bit helps. Let's send it back. All right, guys. So as you guys can hopefully tell from the realistic example, every little bit that you can put in to help maximize the reduction in the time matters. That formula right there, yeah, I got it. Oh yeah, all over it. That formula is the same way that it works with damage reduction. So yesterday we talked about Virian's skill. I'm blanking on the name. Crusader's Might or something like that. Something with the Crusaders. Where if a troop is in a moral boost, then they take 40% less damage. And we also discussed how swordsmen take 50% less damage from like arrows, archers. So if a swordsman is getting struck by arrows and they have a moral boost, then they get 50% damage reduction from being a swordsman and 40% from Virian's Crusader's shield. That does not mean that they reduce 90% of the damage. It works the same way as this. If you add up all those percentages on the board that we just did, it's well over 100%. If you added them, that means that all of the research would be completely free for me, and I would love that. That would save me so much time. That's not how it works. So for the swordsman, they have 50% reduction, 40% reduction. It does not equal 90% reduction. If you take 1,000 damage, it does not reduce it down to 100 damage or 1/10. What it does is, at first you wipe out 50%. And again, since this is multiplication, you can do the 50% first, you could do the 40% first, you could do whichever one you want. I'm just picking the stuff that's easy that I can do in my head. So you take that 50%, you take that 1,000, you cut it in half. So now you got 500 damage. 500 damage then gets reduced by 40%, which would be 200. 40% of 500 is 200. So you reduce 200 off of that. Now you're left with 300. So the difference in knowing the style in math can lead you to think that your troops are going to take 100 damage versus 300 damage, or 3 times that amount. That's a very significant amount. The last thing that I hope that we take away from all of this is use every little advantage you can in this game. If you're not maximizing what is at your disposal, then you're selling yourself short. Some things might be tough to obtain, like getting a Magister position or a King position, or even an Oracle. That might be out of the realm for some people, depending on your server, depending on leadership, etc. It might not be in your cards. For right now, at least. Someday you'll probably get it. What I recommend doing in those situations is save all of your rush for when you do get that position, and then blow all the rush on research. Don't waste research. Don't waste your building rush unless you have as many bonuses as possible. But anyways, I digress. Take advantage of all of these little things. Anytime you queue up research, be on a research tile. Anytime you queue up building, be on a building tile. Have an alt dragon, or maybe two, one for construction right now and one for research. And when you queue it up, make sure that you have that right dragon out and it has enough points in the skills so that you get the benefits. When looking at your temple, I would, if you can deal with the patience of this, go +3 across the board in temple. You can work on doing some +4s here and there, and once you're mostly +4s, then you can do a temple reset. Make sure everything is +3, and then +5 the research one for the additional 30% reduction. 30% reduction straight up that's massive, no matter how you cut it. So that's a long-term play. Your troops are going to be weaker for the short term, but that's definitely the smart move since this is a long-term game. This isn't a game that in a month you're going to be maxed out with everything. There really isn't a max at this point in time. The ceilings keep being lifted. So take advantage of all of those little things. For all of that stuff to stack up, you only need it when you hit that button to queue up the research or the building. Once it's locked in the queue, it does not matter. You can change your dragon back, you can move off the tile, you can do whatever you want. It does not matter. Once it's locked in the queue on the bottom for the research, or once the buildings say that they're in queue for building, that value is set in place. The only way that would change is if you cancel it, which you should only do if you get more buffs. Otherwise, don't cancel them. Or you get all the same buffs and you want to pick different things. That's fine. So make sure that you take care of all of those things. That being said, you don't have to sit on a research tile. If I go under my troops and I queue up everything from under tier 13, everything from level 27 to 35, and that's literally going to be like 3 weeks of time. I do not need to sit on a research tile for 3 weeks. Me personally, I will, just because that's the only thing I care about. I don't want to lose my research spot, but we don't have to sit on those spots. Once you queue it up, move off. And the reason why I say move off of that spot is because we're a team. This is a team game. You cannot compete in this game by yourself. You cannot do Clash of Fate by yourself and expect to win. You cannot have a kingdom by yourself and expect to hold the kingdom or do anything meaningful in this game. This game is a team-based game. So queue up on those spots and move off of them. That way, after the 12 hours, somebody else can move in, get the benefits, and your whole team gets stronger. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Sorry, this one was a little bit nerdy. Some of it might have been very repetitive, but I wanted to really hammer that home that that's how the math in this game works for reduction or reducing time or damage or anything else. So like always, guys, please like the channel, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Leave a comment in the comment section if this made sense. If things were confusing, please let me know in the comment section. Also in the comment section, let me know what you want to see for the next video. I am doing the hero spotlight, so Probably tomorrow we'll have Denji coming out. I'm going in order, and then the newest hero I'll do last. But let me know in the comment section what you would like to see next as far as the Get Nerdy series. So with that, have a great day, guys. Stay safe and Nor.